Okay, showing my screen now, so I should be able to see the intro slide. There's not going to be many slides today. It's really a special Q&A. Just another minute or so. And it's hard for everyone to be on time with traffic and everything.
Yeah, it's difficult. All those people in the streets right now.
Okay. Well, this session is going to be recorded anyway, so if there's any questions that people miss at first, they'll be able to watch the recording later on. So again, I'd like to welcome everyone to our special Q&A on working remotely. I have the panel of specialists with me, Mr. James Sawyer, Mr. James Welburn, and Mr. Michael Slater. We asked the audience to provide us with some questions on, the changes that they're living through today, and perhaps some advice on how to make it work better or make it work at all. And of course, for everyone that's here, please do not hesitate to ask questions right now. There's the chat option below you, and we have someone that's going to whisper those questions to us. Just want to briefly go back. I hope everyone's seeing my screen. Briefly go over what this webinar was about. This is a webinar we did yesterday and last week as well. And in it, we talked about the 6 different steps that companies can use to enable remote work in this unprecedented time. The way it was made, it was like the easiest steps were at first, and the more complex steps were up top. And we had pretty good success with those on there. Lots of interesting questions as well from people there. So I do encourage you to find the recording of that webinar if you are interested in seeing what we had to say. Otherwise, I do believe we are ready for some Q&A.
Sure. So welcome everyone. This is Alexander. I'll be asking the questions to these gentlemen today. So guys, I want to start with a very general question, which I don't think we covered that much in the first webinar. And it is, what does Sherweb recommend I do during this period? And this obviously comes from a partner. They're wondering what they should work on, considering that maybe their tickets are down. And this is especially since this week, probably last week, they had a lot of tickets, a lot of services that they had to attend to, but maybe this week it's starting to slow down. Their clients are being more and more remote. So what should they be focusing on in the next few weeks?
Well, for the next few weeks, from my part, I would say, communication is going to be absolutely critical. And because, so many people are working remotely and a lot of people are not used to working remotely, you're going to also have to take on a new hat of part-time psychologist for your workforce. And you will want to schedule, there's a lot of good resources out there on the web now from some great speakers that, kind of encourage people to really make sure that they're connected via video, that they're talking on the phone. It's not business as usual because you can't have a cup of coffee with someone on a break or, talk at the water cooler, ask about the weekend and things like that. And those relationships are incredibly important. And to make sure that you don't kind of lose that feel and people get disconnected and isolated, I would say that is the most important part, to make sure that you have that communication going internally with your workforce. And then once that's established, you want to repeat that same type of exercise, but with your clients. You want to make sure that you're talking to them, you're showing them that you haven't disappeared off the face of the earth. Create a Teams meeting. It's very, very simple. They don't have to have Teams already. They'll be prompted to download the attachment whenever they receive the invite, and they'll be able to see you, and that's going to have a great effect. It's really about maintaining those relationships. Everything is kind of on hold as far as business in the future is concerned. So you want to make sure that they don't feel that you're being forgotten, or you're not thinking about them. You're only thinking about yourself. Everybody's, kind of folding in. Things like that are very important to fight. And one thing, and one of many things, is to look at the different promotions that are being offered right now by different services, namely the one for the Teams trial from Microsoft, which will give people 6 months free on Teams to just kind of try out the platform. And right now, for any of your clients that aren't on Teams or have no way of communicating easily with each other, that's probably your best bet, because it can be turned on instantly and there's no costs. Anything else anyone wants to add as far as priorities and what things that they should be focusing on right now, assuming that the ticket volume has gone down a little bit?
Yeah, I might add as well. So definitely, like you said, keeping in touch, letting them know you're there, letting them know that they're still supported, even though, as you mentioned, right, it's an incredibly new time for us all. So I think that's a priority. From there, taking advantage of the downtime, I think is actually could be a good catch-up period as well. So maybe just some projects, maybe some new products you were looking into offering to your base. This could be a good time to research those, to just dig into it, and maybe not something you need to deploy right away or during this, but definitely sort of keeping your eyes on the future there. So that's something personally myself I've taken a little bit more time to look into there, just given the well, we're still in our sort of peak here at Sherweb there, but let's say in the next week or so, I do expect to calm a touch, sort of mimicking what's happening with our partners there. So that'd be something I'd suggest.
We have a very pertinent question, no easy answer.
Thank you, guys. I was reading online on Reddit, somebody, a partner was saying he wanted to become more like better at security, and so like learn new skills. So that's also another avenue they can go. All right, we have questions coming in now in the chat. Richard Sheasley is asking, any list of the full details of the VoIP solution, including equipment that would be required, new phones, etc.?
So there's no, sorry, it's like, how do I start this? So there's no sort of exhaustive list of what's required. There's some constants, let's say, so definitely doing a good network assessment, understanding what the network is, if it's gig, if there's PoE, if we're putting an IP system there. There's no real cookie cutter approach to that. So Sherweb ourselves, so we work with Grandstream and Yealink. So anything in those vendors we would support. We can auto provision from a distance, including our soft phones as well that we offer also as part of our services. It's not to say it's a loaded question, but there's a lot to it. And I could probably take most of the webinar just listing all scenarios here. But definitely, if you want to get in touch with your account rep or get in touch with me directly, my email is there as well. So feel free to reach out, LinkedIn or what have you. There, I definitely sort of dive into it with you. Just there's definitely a few components to consider.
Yeah, because that's the thing, because Wellborn's a bit like the Bruce Lee of Cloud PBX. He does not have a form. He's like water. He's formless. He adapts to the environment. And
look at a really good child. Watch out.
So there's no other type of like checklist of like, every single SMB will need this type of Cloud PBX solution. It'll be the best, for all their needs. We do feel that, the type of relationship we want to have with our partners and clients is very personal, is very tailored to their needs. So again, I would say for that, just engage with James and our Cloud PBX team, and they will ask you some very important questions based on that specific case, that specific client, and then follow-up questions based on those answers as well to make sure that the solution that's built for you is the perfect fit for you.
Perfect.
Yeah, and just a final point on that is that we do have so two tools I think could be useful in the toolbox, in our partner toolbox in Cumulus. So one would be the scoping guide, so it gives a quick summary, a quick way for you to grab info on what's required. And another one is we have a VoIP activation guide as well that'll really take you through the journey. So everything from prospecting to the decision-making phase and different links to materials that you can use throughout. So hopefully that can sort of get you started, but definitely feel free to connect and we'll dive a little deeper.
So what I'll do, Richard, is I'll find your email address and I'll put you in contact with James, so you guys will have each other's email addresses, and if you want to talk further, you'll be able to do that. Okay,
Or
so I
share
have two more
TikTok videos.
Sorry.
I said, or share TikTok videos. You know.
Yeah. Well, so I have more questions. One coming from Alan Cameron. He asks, "What is the best way to get remote guests connected?" So kind of general. You guys want to tackle this one?
Yeah, I'll start. Like, let's say it was on the team side. The easiest way is to send them a meeting invitation via email, and then you'll have them all connected. They'll, again, they'll be prompted to download the application and then to choose a name. And then one thing that some people may not know about those Teams meetings is that even after the meeting is done, they're persistent. They'll stay in your chat bar, in your history, and those guests are able to log back into Teams and back in the meeting weeks afterwards and send you messages and contact you, and even restart the meeting with videos as well. So it's kind of like that direct persistent link with those guests without having to purchase or set up anything that's available with Teams. Otherwise, again, once they're interested, you can get those guests the free trial, and then you can once they are themselves on Teams, you can invite them as guests on your organizations, and you'll be able to say, either it's a unlimited guest, from now on, it's an external guest for certain projects, or it's a full guest, but just with an expiration date, just for a week or 2 weeks, and things like that. So it's very well done. It's very intuitive. The way it's set up, you have all those options. For from an RDS, or I guess some sort of Azure or Performance Cloud, like either James Sawyer or Michael Slater, is there any kind of method to inviting guests that would be preferred?
I mean, an RDS session is user-based, so you don't really invite a guest, but you can create a user and license them so that they could then access those resources, and ideally set up a VPN connection to make sure that your data is secure.
And then, of course, since it's the cloud, you would be able to delete that user after and remove those licenses and not have to, pay for nothing.
Exactly. The beauty of a lot of the cloud infrastructure as a service stuff is it's pay as you go. So if you only need it for a few weeks, you can temporarily build this environment, allow them to use it within the crisis period, and then dismantle it afterwards.
Okay, so Alan Cameron actually added a comment right after his question, and he says many people are using Zoom instead of Teams. And I guess what could be interesting to the audience here is if we could maybe contrast and compare both solutions, Teams and Zoom, because we have been seeing a lot of activity on both sides. So do you mind maybe comparing both?
Well, I think
it's so tough. It's apples and oranges. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think less than a comparison, people have been using Zoom longer because Teams hasn't been there. So they just don't know. And because it's a new technology that people aren't used to using, they're a little bit afraid to dabble into it. But just about anything you can do in Zoom, you can do in Teams. You can share your screen. You can give control to other people that are in the meeting so that they can share their screen, do that kind of collaboration or presentation. I'm not aware of anything that Teams can't do that Zoom can do. It's just a question of.
There is one thing that does come to mind, which is basically the video capacity of Teams right now. So it is limited to a certain amount of people versus in Zoom conferencing, you can do multiple for now. So there is a Microsoft sprint advisory you can see that says they are actually working on that. And the target is to have it out this quarter to go beyond the 4 or 5 webcam capacity right now that Teams has. So I'd say that's the biggest differentiator. However, one of the biggest thing between them really is how you're paying for it, right? So Zoom is standalone, right? You get to pay for it per user a pretty hefty amount. So it's anywhere between, I've heard on a enterprise scale, you'll maybe pay $10 a user. Most small businesses are paying somewhere between 50 and 20. So it's a little bit more expensive. And again, it's something you have to get on top of your Office 365 licensing for productivity. And Zoom is what we call, again, it's a specific tool. It's not a multi-tool. So it really only does one specific lane of thing, and that is video conferencing. Again, those kind of solutions are starting to diversify, and they're not, again, usually standalone. Zoom's one of the few big players left, right? For instance, GoToMeeting purchased by LogMeIn, which also owns telecom companies, a bunch of other products, right? The market's consolidating. So a lot of standalone solutions like that, just people don't want to pay for them because they don't want to have multiple subscriptions. People are trying to reduce that count. What makes Teams interesting is that it's already included in your subscription for most things, minus what we discussed with Alex, like Exchange Online plans maybe don't have it, but largely everything else does. So that's the biggest difference, is that you're using something on board that's already integrated back into your native 365 environment you're already using and doesn't come with any extra costs. Really, and again, the only specific limitation I can think of where I've run into an issue where someone said they're still using Zoom is really just the webcam features right now. But again, Microsoft says they'll address something very shortly. If you just Google that question, you will immediately get the response from Microsoft saying it's on their roadmap to add very soon.
And I'd just like to add that every time Michael Slater says, and again, drink.
It's a great drinking game, but I always
That is a great one.
Yeah, Alex,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. But otherwise, I would agree with Michael Slater on this. Like, to me, the biggest difference between Zoom and Teams is the fundamental purpose of the tool. Zoom was built video conference first. Everything else came as an add-on, as capabilities. They're trying to tag on other services. Teams is like the toolkit. The video chat part of it is only one of the tools. It's kind of like a multi-purpose screwdriver, so it's not as good as the single screwdriver for now, but because we're using, nanotechnology or something, like our multi-purpose screwdriver will be better by, a year or so. It's just that's where things are going. And again, just the security aspect of it. Everything that's been built into Teams is from an enterprise grade, Fortune 100 companies, all the compliances included. So it's things that you don't have to think about whenever you're moving to that platform, that you're going to have certain like security breaches and things like that. Not to say that Zoom doesn't have those capabilities, but it's just not native. So again, like any patch, any update, any new vulnerability that's exposed, they have to work, with more moving parts than the Microsoft team has, because it's all natively built in.
If compliance is a concern, I cannot stress enough the value of going to the Trust Center over at the Microsoft website and just seeing exactly how many potential issues you might have that Microsoft has already taken care of for you without you even realizing it.
Good, thank you guys. So we have a longer one here from Errol Janus. So I'll just read it and we'll see where it goes. He says, "We are busy, but I'm running into a huge problem. As we dive into modern management with our clients, we are setting Intune policies, Azure settings, and other endpoint management services. The problem we are having is that we simply don't know what to do in some cases. What device compliance profile is best for endpoint protection is one example. That is just one of many questions and issues we have run into, all normal modern management operations in 365. And then he says that he's looking for a Sherweb resource to help him out, which is totally possible. But maybe as a point of discussion, could we discuss this topic?
Well, it would almost kind of segue back into what Mike Slater was saying about the Trust Center. Whenever you're setting up any type of device management policies, you have to know which vertical you're in, and you have to know which compliance this client falls into. And if you consult with the Microsoft Trust Center, you'll see that for many of these compliance standards, there are templates, there are guidelines. There is, even in some cases, like checklists of things that you have to do to make sure that you are following those guidelines. And otherwise, you'll be able to see in the Intune Center, whenever you're setting those policies, you can kind of see why you're setting them up. So again, I would just say, kind of trust your instance on some level on this one. Whenever you're choosing certain settings, again, like a risk averse type of companies are not going to say, well, I'm not going to put any conditional access. Anyone can log in whenever. Or if you have a certain workforce that is working remotely, but for a fact that they're all going to stay within the same state, well, you can create an IP range for those connections, just to make sure that anyone that's connecting in is within those IP ranges. So you are reducing the attack surface from anyone outside of your county or your state. Anything you may want to add to that, Mr. Sawyer? I think.
Well, I mean, I think you pretty much you covered everything that I was gonna say on that topic.
I regurgitate too well the things you say.
Well, you learn from the best.
But yeah,
Okay, great.
do you know if he's did he comment anything else? Did you feel like it might have answered his question? Because otherwise it would be, just engage with us and we can again drill down to see what the specific requirements are for this customers and either guide you on the templates already pre-built by Microsoft or just general guidelines as to what you would want to do and not do.
And you can always reach out to support. Our support is 24/7. If there's specific things that you're looking for, we can help guide you in the right direction.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll reach out to this person as well as the first one and connect them to the right person. But I think that's a very good start to the discussion. So.
You're the real MVP here, man.
Doing my best. All right, I have a question here. Would a hibernation feature on a customer's organization in the partner portal be useful to mitigate the COVID-19 crisis, where the hibernation feature will put on ice all licenses and will stop billing you or charging minimal fees to keep backup data accessible? If not, what capacity will make more sense to help you deal better with that situation from the partner portal?
That's a very good question. There's many ways to go about it. I'm not exactly sure about the hibernation feature in Cumulus, how it works with Office 365. I do believe it was more made for our own services, things like our hosted Exchange, but because otherwise, because we still get billed by Microsoft if you have licenses active in your portal, and we pass that down to you. So even if the licenses are not being actively used in any capacity, as long as they're in the portal, you're being charged for them. If you run into a situation where a company client needs to hibernate, shut down for a month or two, and they want to not lose any data and not lose any services, but not pay the full service at the same time, I would say right now the best bet is to reach out to us so that we can analyze it, because there are a lot of things you can do. Like say for example, if you have a user or like multiple users that are not going to be there anymore for the next 2-3 months, you would be able to change their licensing to Exchange Online Plan 2, add things as like a legal hold, litigation hold, to make sure that there's no data that's able to be deleted. And then afterwards, and again, this may be changed or anything, and I'm glad I have Mr. Sawyer to say, no, you're wrong. I do believe you can still remove the Exchange Plan 2 license after that's been done, and the data will not be deleted or removed or expire because of the legal hold that's on there.
That is correct, but keep in mind that just because the data is held on the back end, if you go beyond I think it's 60 days where the user is hard deleted, you can't just reactivate the user. You need to restore a brand new user and then recover the data from that backend vault, so to say, in order to get it back in there. So what I would suggest is if you're going to do something in that regard, maybe combine it with something like our online backup, make a full backup of the mailboxes using that, keep the retention on that for as long as you think you might need it. And then if the user gets deleted, it's just as easy to restore it from the online backup directly to the mailboxes. Now that's of course specific to Office 365 because we can back up Office 365 cloud to cloud.
I think that's fair. I would say like your method is probably easier on the coming out of hibernation, and then the method I suggested is probably like the most cost effective if you're willing to put in the work for the restore afterwards when spring finally comes.
Exactly. We're giving you different options. And it also really depends on how long will it be under the circumstances. I mean, we know it's going to be for at least a month, but if it goes longer and those users you've soft deleted get lost, then it does make the recovery a little bit more difficult. So at that point, you might want to reevaluate the method that you're using. And the other thing to keep in mind too is when you talk about changing a person's license, if they're going from say a business premium that includes Teams and OneDrive and SharePoint and stuff, those are extra pieces of data that are not normally covered by the regular archiving or in-place hold on their mailbox. You need to have other policies and whatnot put in place, so it can make it a little bit more complex there as well. So something like online backup, you could back up the whole mailbox, OneDrive, SharePoint, that might be a better solution for that kind of scenario if you're going to reduce the license, because otherwise all that data could be lost.
Yeah, and then otherwise, like, if it's just a matter of, trying to, cut down a little bit on expenses, but not really shutting down, within the Cumulus portal, there's a great reports tab where you can kind of audit all your organizations, all your clients, and see the license count if everything is being used fully. And then when you reduce it, you'll be able to see, and it's color coded, so you can just kind of scroll down the screen, and if everything's green, that means it's optimized.
Great, thank you guys. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, and I have 3 questions here that are kind of in the same broad topic, which is more a business topic. We've been getting a lot of questions about partners that are kind of worried, and they're asking, for example, how do I deal with clients not paying on time, or how can I win new customers in spite of the crisis? Should I be offering promotions to offer to my customers to help them during this period? And obviously, these are all tough questions, but maybe we can open a short discussion around what business strategies partners can use to better support their clients, and also to help them get through this tougher period. And also maybe how Sherweb can assist the partner in this.
The existing part is always difficult, right? So what do you do when you have a great customer that you've been working with the last decade and suddenly they can't pay their bills? My advice number 1 is first thing you should do is talk to your suppliers. That's just the immediate conversation you need to have. So go above and beyond Sherweb. Think to everybody you deal with in your ecosystem, right? Everybody from your hardware vendors to your software vendors to your cloud vendors. Figure out exactly what the payment terms are, if there's any flexibility. Some companies are offering flexibility, certain ones aren't. I know that we're currently investigating. Again, we're trying to figure stuff out with our suppliers to see if we could do something for existing clients. Again, it's a difficult situation for everybody because we just don't know where the future is going to be. And a lot of these bigger vendors are still making those decisions. But the second we know, we'll be the first person to pass it down to our channel as soon as something is available. Now, that being said, on the topic of existing clients, we have a lot to help with that. So in our previous webinars, we kind of showed off some of the promos we have. We have a great Cloud PBX one. James, do you want to explain that one?
Yeah, sure. So again, it's just to mitigate the cost for you to continue to offer services to them. So what we've done is actually we've extended our sort of grace period, right? So when we onboard a customer, generally we only start the billing once the whole process is complete. So that means the number is ported and everything's been tested, usually for a week or 2. In this case, we're actually going above and beyond. So we're going 60 days from when the order is placed before we send out the first bill. So definitely a little grace period, hoping everything gets turned back around in that time. And we're also waiving any setup fees. So again, so it's not a major gesture there, but it's definitely a step, and it's something that we can do. As Michael mentioned, though, we're working with our vendors as well to see if there's any additional support that can be brought forward. But those are some measures that we put in place, sort of in the short term here to keep things moving and give you guys a chance to keep offering your services.
And I think that Alex has a series of promos too, right? I believe there's a bunch of things that Microsoft is up to as well.
Well, yeah, well, that's the thing. Like just the one I've mentioned already, like the Teams commercial trial for 6 months. That would be a great way to go after new clients right now without putting yourself or your finances at risk. And it's going to be, and the demand is there right now, because if those clients are right now not able to work remotely, this is going to be like a godsend to them. Otherwise, just to kind of put, I do feel, and I think we may, don't know it just yet, but I do feel that this is a topic that kind of warrants its own webinar. And we may kind of go into that, or, other people will go into it, because I think this is going to be a reality that a lot of companies, not just in the MSP world, but in anyone that does business right now, has to reevaluate their clientele. And one thing that, you'll want to do is, again, not do a blanket approach to say, okay, everyone, I love you all, the next 3 months are free, and then you'll go under. But it's to kind of play the not the devil's advocate, but just really judge your clients on their long-term potential survival. So say, for example, if it's a travel agency that's just went to the cloud, chances are, unless they are extremely solid, they're not going to be picking back up, full speed in June, July. It's just not going to be something that's going to be happening. But if they're in different verticals, like say, healthcare, law firms, things like that, you may want to consider reworking your agreements with them. Say, for example, normally you're on a 12-month schedule with them for a certain amount. Well, now you'll say, well, we're going to be on an 18-month schedule just for this one time. And the first 3 months, you're not going to pay me anything, but that's going to be reflected in the next 15 payments of our 18-month agreement. So those are ways that you can, kind of reduce the burden on both yourself and your clients after things are picking back up, because you don't want them to be like, well, after 3 months, you owe me 3 months worth of everything. It's going to be counterproductive. They're not going to be able to help you on that. And like Michael Slater said, we are, investigating as much as we can. We are taking our own advice. We are soliciting our suppliers for, some kind of any type of relief, anything that can be in sync with some things that the governments are doing. So again, this may vary from country to country, if you're in Canada or the US or in Europe. So as the information comes, we will, want to pass it down. And I know I said, James, so drink. We'll want to.
Oh, I've been
pass it
running
down
Cali
to you.
now. You owe me 10 shots so far.
But yeah, like we will want to give you more information, and as soon as we have any information from our suppliers or any of the big players, we'll pass that along, as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you, guys. We have 2 more questions here in the chat. Laura Peters is asking, how can you create a demo tenant for Dynamics 365 Sales or Dynamics 365 Business Central?
Where's Joel when we need him?
Yeah.
So I'll address that one though. So the way it works for most demos, for us doing anything, and I'm glad to see that people are looking at Dynamics demos. Again, that's probably one of the most at-risk products that we're concerned about right now, is what we're going to do, just because a lot of people that tend to use that are a lot of the businesses that are affected. Is that we still have the ability to do those kind of demos, so it's not a big deal. You would just reach out to your account rep, and we actually have a demo process. So we can actually give you a demo specifically based on the features you'd like to see based on the module. So if you guys have like an F&O module you guys like to preview with specific features, we can do that. We can do it for sales. We can do it for customer service. We do it for every really component of Dynamics 365 and Power Apps by topic. So my recommendation is go talk to your account manager as soon as you can. He'll book something with Joel. We'll get a customized demo based on your actual need, and we'd be more than happy to show it to you as quick as possible to get you guys up and running if it is important and rushed. So don't worry about it. We're still up and running, and again, we have a great practice here in Dynamics, one of the best in the country. Actually, one of the best in North America, we've been told by Microsoft, so we're more than happy to help.
Awesome. I just have one last one here. It is rather long, so bear with me. I suspect that in April and May, we will start to get immediate requests to replace our clients' phone systems to Microsoft 365 Business Voice. This will be great because it means more revenue for Sherweb and us. However, if we know nothing about mass and quick deployments of team-based phone systems, how can we tell our clients with confidence that we can switch them over? And then there's more detail, but that's the gist of the question.
Yes, I think the surefire way to be able to answer that, or to be able to speak to that adequately, would be to go through it yourself. So definitely taking advantage of the 6-month trial, like Alex mentioned, maybe getting your company spun up, going through the deployment process, working through the number porting to Microsoft Teams there. So these are some things that definitely I'd suggest that you give a dry run internally. And then from there, you'll be able to sort of scale that out. At least you'll have a good feel of how that works. Generally speaking, though, to deploy, especially if you're getting a new number, often within a few days, that can all be set up, depending on your level of expertise and your comfort with telephony solutions, of course. That being said, Sherweb does have a great solution, great support in that regard. So I can definitely help you kind of put some pieces together, provide you with some documentation on how to go about building out, let's say, a call queue, for example. And then to go a step further, we do have an integration with Microsoft Teams and our Cloud PBX, in which case we can do the full deployment for you. So that's with our team of experts. An average deployment for us is within 2 weeks. That's loading all the IVRs and all the menus, the call queues and hunt groups and what have you. So there's definitely a few approaches to it, but yeah, doing it yourself is the my long story long way of answering that.
And James, out of curiosity, so is there a way that they can get this, up running for themselves? Like our NFR program would apply for this, right? If they do want to work through their first deployment with us and getting set up and utilizing it, we can help them with that, right?
For what concerns our UCAS, yeah, absolutely. When it comes to the Microsoft Teams, it's going to be using the free trial, or I'm sure most of you already have, maybe an E3 or something of the like, that would include Microsoft Teams. So going through it there, just adding on either the phone system SKU or business voice, depending on which side of the border you're located on. But hopefully, actually, in the next week or so, I should have some more news that we can share, as well as additional efforts or additional promotions that we're looking to support
Sure.
for those UCAS deployments.
Yeah, and from my end, I would just add, like from a philosophical standpoint, if the coming of M365 Business Voice was in your plans already, and you had already been putting efforts into learning about it and deploying it, then yes, it will be available, and you'll be able to have the resources as soon as we're able to release the material on it. We'll do so as well. But if this is something strictly reactive, from this is happening, this is the crisis, this is coming out, we have to offer it, I would highly recommend to go instead with people of experience like James Welburn and our Cloud PBX team, so that they can offer you and do the onboarding and know the nooks and crannies and the questions we forget to ask and the little quirk that can happen, which again, on a first or even second or third deployment, this is not the type of things that you want to happen. You want it to go smooth, especially when you're diving into unknown waters.
Great. So we're approaching 40 minutes, so we'll be wrapping it up very quickly. I do want to make sure that we cover the promotions that we have going on. They're actually on the next slide. They're kind of hidden. So just because you guys mentioned those a little earlier, so we do have those right there. Okay, let me just see if we have any last minute questions. Okay, yeah, I do see one here about the E1 free trial, which has been asked about a lot in the last few days. The E1 free trial, which includes Teams, I believe.
Yes. I didn't know what the question was, so my answer was yes.
Okay.
Yes, it exists.
Okay, the question wasn't more detailed than that, so. All right.
No worries.
Well, all right, thank you guys.
There's been confusion about this because obviously initially when it was first started, it wasn't about any type of COVID response from Microsoft. As the situation developed, they switched it to that. And then there was another type of promotion at the same time that had requirements of customers being managed by Microsoft or not being managed by Microsoft. In CSP, there was a minimum of 1,000 or a maximum of 1,000. There was a lot of confusion, but it has been simplified. We should be able to offer it even within Cumulus shortly. Right now, as far as I know, it's still a manual process. We have to go into the partner center and request a specific promo code to enable it on a per tenant basis. But it is available, and it is something that will become easier and easier because obviously the demand is there, and Microsoft is putting the resources to make it happen.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So thank you, gentlemen. Just addressing the partners here, if you do want more of this type of content, reach out to us and we can make ourselves available in the future. We appreciate you asking all these questions.
All right, thanks everyone. Stay safe. I hope you all have great plans this weekend of visiting other places in your households that you haven't visited recently, and then you can make some memes and things on Facebook to help everyone else be not as bored.
So, me and Alex have a significant amount of drinking to do now, apparently, for Yusuf and then. So we'll see you guys on Thursday.
All right. Cheers, all.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Best of luck.